Okay, yeah, so I'll just get to it. We were discussing STEM is the future in the last clip. That's where I stopped. STEM is the future. And the fact of the matter is, STEM always has been the building block of societal um, advancement. It's how societies have always advanced. It's always been on the basis of improvement on the way we do things, the way we do everything. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So that's what I discussed in 3.21. In 3.3, promoting innovation, that's the caption title, promoting innovation. So what I discussed there essentially is what can be done within the Nigerian context to promote innovation in the society, promote individual creativity and group, individual creativity and collective innovation of the entire Nigerian society. So in 3.4, which is titled Transcending the Flaws of Outdated Educational Structures, um, if you are the kind of person who loves change or who is comfortable with change, you'd like this particular section. Though a lot of people usually say, oh yeah, change is good. I mean, we all know how to say that. We all say, oh yeah, change is the only constant thing in life, but how many of us really are open to change? The arguments that I put forth in 3.4 are quite radical. I know that myself. They're radical, and there are people who may even think that the ideas are too wild, but if it's read with an open mind and if you have an imaginative mind and you're open-minded, you'll see why the disruptions that I suggest are necessary and why they should be welcomed, why it shouldn't be something that should frighten us. Change frightens people, it frightens all of us, but we must embrace them because, yeah, change is the only constant in life. So, some of the ideas, like I said, that I shared that are pretty wild but necessary, because disruptive ideas are good, especially if especially when they're forward, when they bring about forward movement. Change can occur. Change can be regressive. It can be change can be change can be two ways, good or bad. Brings about progress or causes regression. So it's not all disruptive ideas that are good, which is why I qualified it and said disruptive ideas that bring about forward movement. That's it. So now moving on to chapter 4. In chapter 4, chapter 4 is is divided into 4 sections, and 4.1, there I discussed a political class devoid of political ideology. It's not out of place to call the current crop of politicians in Nigeria gravy train politicians, because that's what they are really. They're innate. They're not politicians. If you want to know what I mean by that, you want to see the video that I did titled The Difference Between an Oligarch and a Politician. There's a distinction. Many of those who wade into Nigeria's political space are in it for personal benefit, they're in it for stomach infrastructure, they're in it to fill their belly. They haven't gone in for the purposes of serving Nigerians. So that's what 4.1 is about, essentially. Drawing the picture, showing that, look, these guys do not serve our interest. Some know it, but not everybody knows it. And I think the reason why a lot of Nigerians, especially young people, don't understand this is because many of us grew up during military eras. So a lot of Nigerians. I was born. I wasn't around in. Um, I wasn't around during the First Republic. So many of us have never really had a taste of what real politicians do, or how they look, or how they move. So this strongman type political figures, that's individuals who like to terrorize other people, who take power for themselves so that they can terrorize, so that they can oppress, is what many of us are used to. And you find Nigerians actually celebrating this odd of irresponsible stomach infrastructure individuals who really are kleptocrats who pretend to be politicians. So that's what I did essentially with 4.1. And then 4.2, which I titled Reviving a Broke State, Creating Jobs. What I discussed here is, firstly, what I did was to show that human needs and human wants is how jobs are created. I have a need, you have a need, everybody has a need for basics, and basics, that's necessities, and then of course the extras, that's the luxuries. We all have these needs and these wants. So that's how jobs are created. We need clothing, we need accommodation, we need to feed. So all of these needs create economic opportunities, and that's how jobs are created. I discussed this and then went on to show how a state, I used a southwestern state as my case study, how it can partner with investors, local and foreign, to make that state viable. Because if you're a true politician, that's your job. Your job is to facilitate the creation of economic opportunities. That's what leaders do. That's how you serve your people. Sometimes I remember in when I was still writing my book, on the few occasions that I'll just discuss certain bits of it with, this was before I published, with people around me, with some friends, and I say to them, I would ask them, okay, how many jobs, because usually when they're hailing one of these cantankerous, kleptocratic, strong man type politicians, and I'm saying you can't say this person is doing great. How do you measure the performance of a public servant? You do that by looking at what they've been able to do in their state. You look at HDI, you look at GDP, you look at, things. Those are the kind of things you look at. Just because a man is loud doesn't mean he's performing. But for some reason, which I think I've mentioned earlier, that many of us have never really experienced what good politicking is. Many of us have never really been served by those who rule this country. So we don't have a good model of what to contrast or what to look for when we want to measure performance of public servants. So I think I've gone off on a tangent. Let me just stay on point. So reviving a broke state, creating jobs. I discussed, that's 4.2, what a state governor could do as this. The governor of a state is the CEO of the state, is the number one person in the state, and it's really up to him to facilitate and engender an environment that can create economic opportunities for the citizens and inhabitants of his state. So Politicians intuitively know how to do this. If you're really a politician, you intuitively know how to do this. You don't stay in office and continue to harp on the same thing, saying, oh, there was no money in the coffers when I came, my predecessor I inherited debts from my predecessor. All of that is what people do when they don't have answers. If you have answers to a problem, you go right ahead and solve the problem. You don't go about blaming others and apportioning blame for 4 to 8 years. I remember I saw on Twitter the other day someone asked the question, who was the most performing governor in Nigeria? I think some people listed some states. I don't remember what state. But I said none of them was performing, because how do you know that a public servant is performing? It's by looking at the environment that where they govern or where they rule. Is there electricity? Is there potable water? Are infrastructure available in the state? Are there good roads? Transportation system? How is the economy of the state doing? What's the unemployment rate in that state since this person came in? Has it increased? Has it decreased? These are the metrics that you look at, but it's unfortunate and sad that Nigerians are not sophisticated enough to know what to look for and to know what to measure. Rather, you find Nigerians focusing on things that are totally irrelevant and that can't even advance them forward. Humans generally, okay, I shouldn't say generally, some people like strongman type politician, and I think the reason why this is the case is because I think you have to be oppressive yourself to celebrate a strongman type politician, because what strongman type politicians do is oppress those who are weaker than they are, or oppress those who are in a weaker position than they are. Strongman type politicians use their office to oppress. So why would any right-thinking person, especially when you consider that every Nigerian is religious, they're either, and almost fanatical, they're either Muslims or Christians. So how does a person who supposedly should be moral, should have good moral, celebrate or be happy, celebrate a strongman type politician, or be happy when a strongman type politician oppresses other people? Nigerians confuse me a lot, I must admit. So that's that about 4.2. Then in 4.3, which I titled Primary Industry Critical to Development. The primary industry is the extractive sector, where we have things like agriculture, mining, and all of those kind of things. And I argued in 4.3 that it's critical to development, and this is true. Everything that man consumes comes from the soil, comes from earth. That's why I argued that it's critical, that the primary sector is critical to development. There isn't anything that, of course, we've been able to create a lot of synthetic things that makes life easy or easier, like plastic, which isn't good if we look at it from an environmental standpoint, but that's not what I'm saying now. So the primary industry is critical to development. There isn't anything we consume that doesn't come from the earth. So there is need to invest in that sector, is what I posited in that section. And then in the final section, which is 4.31, I titled it Jollof Rice War. I'm having a hard time breathing. My nose is blocked somewhat. So please do bear with me if my breathing or if I'm sounding funny. So Jollof Rice War. I did that. I just inserted that to kind of like poke fun and relax the discuss a bit. We all know the country that we have this constant rivalry of jollof rice with, you know. So I just did like a contrast between Nigeria and that country. You know the country, but if you do not, that's good. That's good reason for you to pick up the book so that you can find out what country that is. So that brings me to the end of this chapter 4, what I discussed in chapter 4, and it also brings me to the end of this clip, because like I said, I don't want each of the clip to be longer than 20 minutes. I've been talking for almost 20 minutes now, so I'll continue. I've got chapter 5, 6 and 7 to still cover, so I'll continue in the next clip. If anything I've said in the last few minutes is interest you, consider, well, the point of doing this whole series is to get people interested in my book and get them to make a purchase. I promise that it will be worth your while, your time and your money. Also, to help us grow the channel, to help my team and I here at LTM, please do like this content, share it. Also consider subscribing to the channel so that every time that we load something new, you can get notification. So see you in the next clip.